Hi, everyone. Welcome to Six Figure Authors, the show that helps you take your writing career to the next level. I'm Andrea Pearson, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Lindsay Baroker.
And I'm Joe Lalo.
And today we're interviewing Loren Coleman, or Loren L. Coleman. Isn't that your middle initial?
Yeah, there's two of us, though.
Yes, that was what threw us in the beginning. We're like, okay, I can't find anything on him anywhere. But I was like, I know he does stuff because I've talked to him before. Anyway,
Yeah.
Loren is a science fiction author who has written for series like Battletech, MechWarrior, Age of Conan, Magic the Gathering, and Star Trek. He's also written for Wizards of the Coast and other gaming companies. On top of all that, Loren is a Kickstarter guru, having run several very successful Kickstarter campaigns. And as the owner of Catalyst Game Labs, he's someone in the know where the gaming community and authors are concerned because he does both. We're really excited to have him on the show, and we wanted to welcome you, Loren.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to just dig right into our questions. We're going to start out with just some general background questions on you. And let's see. So you write Battletech novels, right?
I have, yes.
How did you get affiliated with them and with Shadowrun?
I just, through a writing workshop I used to belong to, I met a few people that worked for, at the time, FASA Corporation. They were the creators of Battletech and Shadowrun, and the people publishing the game and the novels. And I just kind of started working for them, writing what is effectively creative nonfiction, is how I describe writing for the games. And I was already pitching to their editor to write novels. And after a few months, I'd been working for them about 6 months. And the editor came to me and said, "You're pretty good, and someone just dropped their novel. They couldn't get it done. Can you write a novel in 7 weeks?" And I said, "Yes." And I hung up and went, "Maybe." So she gave me this novel to write in 7 weeks, and I talked to the Battletech line developer at the time and said, "What do you want this to be about?" And he just said, "Oh, just go make this one faction cool, because they've been like the whipping boys forever. We're giving that to you. Go make them cool again." So I had a vague direction of go that direction, and I had 7 weeks to do it, roughly. I did it in 5, I believe, and that was my first introduction to Battletech novels. And I've written, I think, 12 or 13 of them now, between Battletech and MechWarrior, which is all the same world. And I love it. It's a great dynamic military sci-fi universe, which is my favorite genre. So it's been really awesome.
Yeah, so it was kind of funny because we were at the Business Master class last year and this year, and my husband is a huge Battletech fan, so is his brother, and I had no idea. And I'm like, hey, while we were there this last time, I texted my husband. I was like, does Catalyst Labs mean anything, or Games Lab mean anything to you, or Battletech? And he's like, yes. So
yes. For those who like military sci-fi, it's probably the longest running epic storyline in military sci-fi. It's been going on, 70, I think, some novels now, 32 years of a dynamic storyline. It's it's a living universe. They don't reset after every story. They just change it. You change the universe, you keep going. So it's been a really popular fiction line. I've been very happy to be part of it.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so how did Catalyst Game Labs come about?
That's by accident. Is the short version. So when FASA, that I was working for quite a while, they basically closed their doors, and I don't remember the actual date of this, probably around, I'm going to guess it was around 2000 and, let's say, right around 2000, 2002, somewhere in there. FASA closed its doors, and they shifted the IP to the next company. Jordan Weissman's next company was owned by, at that point, WizKids Games, and then WizKids was bought by Topps. Now, at this point, I've been a freelancer. I'm writing novels. I'm writing game material. I'm probably at that point one of their top 2 freelancers, and I work for both companies, both FASA and WizKids. And then WizKids got bought by Topps, and there was some very Battletech was being kind of published at that point by a company called FanPro under a license from WizKids. I'm trying to get all this right. The begats and the begottens here. FanPro worked for WizKids, publishing the classic Battletech game line, and I was doing some work for them. And then that kind of all collapsed in there. There was some issues with a German company owning FASA US, licensing from them. It was a big mess. So when it all kind of fell apart, they brought me in to try to help untangle it, because I'd been around for so long. I knew where everything was. I knew all the players. So I was involved with WizKids trying to help untangle the entire mess. And at one point, there were several people asking for the license to take over the license. And at one point, the president of WizKids at that point, who was a TOPS appointee, turned to me in an office meeting and said, all these people who are asking for the Battletech license, they're not going to get it. He said flat out, no, it's not going to happen. We don't like them. It's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, I said, okay, well, that's your choice. He said, yeah, but you just need to know what you're doing. He said, could you run these game lines? Could you run these game lines? I said, well, yeah. He said, can you make a profit? I said, yes. He said, can you keep the stupid stuff off my desk? And I said, no, because there's too much built up stupidity that we have to fix. But when I bring you something, I will bring you 2 or 3 choices, and you could then choose which direction you want me to go. And he said, that's fair. Congratulations. Here's Battletech and Shadowrun, and go make a company. So I didn't have a company yet. I was handed the license for Battletech and Shadowrun. I had to bootstrap a company into existence overnight, effectively, in order to make our first convention, which was about 2 months later, maybe 3 months later. We went to Origins for our first convention. We had 2 products and a very simple booth, and that was the start of Catalyst Game Labs. It was just right place, right time, and I managed to impress the right guy with my knowledge of the universes and my my publishing credits. So that was how Catalyst got born.
That's really awesome. Yeah, it's made quite a big splash, especially in the gaming community. And
we came in that first year, and we were really good at smoke and mirrors. We call those our smoke. The first 3 years, we call those our smoke and mirrors years. We came into Gen Con. We took over the old WizKid space, so we were like right front and center with a big space, and we put up like all these banners and scaffolding that we could find in time, and we looked a lot bigger than we really were. And we kept up that facade for a solid couple of years until we grew into the position. So we made a big splash and then ran like hell to keep up.
So I have to ask for all the authors listening, could you talk about how the books tie in with the gaming? And are there still opportunities for authors who want to do, I assume it's kind of work for hire stuff?
Yeah. In the FASA years, the novels kind of drove the storyline. All the big plot points always appeared in the novels first. The game was the core of the world, but the game backed up the novels. So they let the novels kind of take the lead on story. Then the game put out the wide base of product to support the universe. And that went away pretty much when FanPro took over Battletech. Instead, FanPro just did the base game, as I recall, and the novels shifted over to WizKids. And WizKids was doing their own version of the game, and they started doing the novels, now branded as MechWarrior Dark Age. Same universe, just slightly different name. And so I was working for FanPro for writing game work and WizKids for writing fiction, and they were kind of separated for a while. And then after FanPro went away and WizKids was bought by TOPS, and that was kind of going away, Catalyst put them back together in a fiction and game line under one brand again. So so it kind of split up for a while. Then we got them back. Then we got the band back together and started doing those again. And just recently, we did a few novels we did a lot of short fiction and anthologies for years. We did a couple of novels, but we just kind of got off to not the best start on getting the novel line back up and running again. It was just recently we've been able to commit and put out a series of novellas and now novels that will let us get back on that track. So yes, we are actually writing novels and novellas and short stories right now for BattleTech and Shadowrun, and we're getting them out there. And Shadowrun especially has been doing, we actually got that back on track about 2 years ago. They're doing very well. The new novels are doing very well. And they're also helping push the old, we have all the old novels, the catalog up online. So it's helping push the old books as well. And those are doing very well across the board. So there's lots of opportunity there. We just brought in 2 new writers to do a couple novels, and for 2020, Steve Mohan and Kevin Kiliani, they've worked for us in the past, and they're doing a novel for us. We brought back some of the what we guess we call it the old guard. Mike Stackpole, who's a New York Times bestselling writer from Star Wars and other really big titles. Mike's coming back to do a BattleTech novel, and then I'll be doing one as well. And then Mike and I are going to collaborate on a project that will either be really awesome or the death of both of us, because we will kill each other. But so yes, we're working with the old novelists, working with new novelists and short story writers, and I guess you'd say medium form novella novelette writers. So having a lot of fun.
That's good that it's going strong again. I actually remember reading Shadowrun in the 90s and tons of Forgotten Realms books. I guess that was now Wizards of the Coast. Yep. TSR back in the day, I believe. We did want to ask you some questions about Kickstarter, since you've done games on there, right? Yes. I assume, and had a lot of experience and made millions for the games, it looks like. Could you talk about how you decided to do Kickstarter and what was involved?
We've been following crowdsourcing since before there was Kickstarter, back when it was just GoFundMe, and then Kickstarter kind of came up fast and strong, as I recall that happening. We've been following it for a long time, because at that point we were a pretty successful company. We didn't really flock to Kickstarter and really chase that too much. There was a little bit of a feeling that Kickstarter was where you revamped old products, or you were experimental. It really wasn't until the last 4 to 6 years where Kickstarter really had just took over and became a platform just for any level across the board. Fiction, games, everything. Fiction's lagging, to me, I believe, lags way behind. Gaming found a huge home on Kickstarter. And gaming, I think, is still, I believe gaming is the top category still by far. Like nothing else comes close, I believe. Of like the top, of like the $1 million Kickstarters and higher, gaming has a very serious percentage of those. I was lucky enough to run one of those myself this last year. We ran a $2.6 million game Kickstarter campaign. It was my 4th or 5th campaign at that point. The first couple were successful but smaller. The next to last was really good, and this one just blew through the ceiling and did crazy. We're still dealing with the very awesome repercussions of having a $1 million campaign out there. So we've done that. I follow multiple categories. I follow design, I follow the fashion category, and I definitely follow the publishing category on Kickstarter. I think that maybe right now one of the weaker categories, but because it just hasn't really found hasn't found as much footing yet as some of the techie, physical stuff that's out there. But I think it will. It's following along and getting stronger. So.
Right. It does seem to be the really successful ones, of course, are the authors who already sell pretty well. We had Michael J. Sullivan on our old show, and I think he's done a couple for close to 100,000. Of course, as authors, we may only need like 5,000 to get a book edited and cover art. So that's kind of why we wanted to have you on to help out, give some advice just on Kickstarter in general for authors, because there's a lot too that struggle, that may not get what they're asking for.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the stuff I do on the gaming side, definitely translates to the publishing side. In fact, I have a very good friend in the gaming community. His name is Matt Forbeck, who has done Kickstarters over on the publishing side. He's also a really great writer. And he did this one Kickstarter plan. I believe it was 4 books in a year. He did 1 per quarter for 1 year. And each one, I believe, got progressively better. But he started with where I think most people have to start on Kickstarter, which was with realistic expectations. He didn't plan on bringing his first book to Kickstarter and, doing a $100,000 campaign. In fact, I don't think he set much of any limit on the first one. He used it as a way to push himself to write a book he probably wouldn't have written anyway. And Matt, if you're out there, I'm getting this wrong, I apologize. You can, thump me at Gen Con. But as I recall, Matt was pushing himself to write books he may not have written anyway. But he built a fan base. He added to his fan base through Kickstarter. So every book got a little better and a little better. And by the end of his first year, I believe he had written 4 books, at least 4 books, and was getting paid enough to to make that a part of his career. So it's definitely possible. And just you start with realistic expectations, but then you also approach it with the fact that you are a professional. This is not just a garage. This is not a garage sale idea. This is not slumming. This is serious stuff. Kickstarter is I believe now close to if not $1 billion platform. This is big business. There are people making more on Kickstarter than people are making on the New York Times bestseller list, I believe. You just have to know how to approach it and how to build it into a successful career.
That's really fantastic. I didn't know that about Kickstarter. And you've kind of already kind of answered or bit around my next question, but just to make it a little bit more formal. So what are the most important things first-time campaign creators need to keep in mind when planning a campaign? And I can ask the next part of that question after that. But yeah, go ahead.
As I said, first of all, start with realistic expectations. And the other thing you should do, you should always, if you have been studying Kickstarter for a while, and I mean for a few months, you should do that first. The biggest mistake I see is people that look at it for a couple of days and then start pounding away like, I'll throw my first campaign up there. You need to basically know your market. And this is a market, it's a platform and a market both. You need to know it in order to capitalize on and be successful there. So set a realistic goal, learn the system, follow a couple campaigns, publishing, gaming, whatever interests you. Follow some, you have places to learn in every category. You will learn something new in every category. I have. And then be prepared. And this is where we can talk about this. This will be also down the road. But it'll come up early and be a problem for people all throughout their campaign. Be prepared to let people into your office effectively. You are opening your door to a very large group of people. It's like you're almost like in a convention. You're running panels effectively. These people want to help you. They want to be supportive, but they also want some of your time. They want to interact with you. It's definitely a social dynamic involved in this. So if you're not prepared to do the social dynamic, you can either hurt or cripple your campaign and or cripple the platform for yourself for a length of time. So you have to be ready for that. So, but if you follow along with some campaigns to begin with, you won't be caught by surprise by the social dynamic or other issues.
Now, these are people who currently already are on Kickstarter, but I mean, does that apply to the people that you bring to Kickstarter? Treating them like the open office and all of that, interacting and everything?
Well, I mean, if you're bringing your own fan base to Kickstarter to help support your campaign, that's great. And you're probably at that point you are used to working with your fan base through email groups or newsletters or conventions or whatever it is you do. That can only help you. But on Kickstarter, there's every category in Kickstarter has its fan base. Just like the people who walk into Barnes and Noble, or the people that check the New York Times bestseller list, or the people that check the Amazon list. You have your audience you're trying to attract to your work. I don't care if it's game or book or whatever. You're trying to attract an audience. This audience has built-in some built-in beliefs and I'm trying to be nice about it, but they are going to be insistent in a few areas. They have an expectation of access, and I think it's a fair expectation. You're asking them to give you money before you probably even have a product to show them. So they expect some access. They expect you to let them know what's going on. They expect to be part of the process. That's why it's called crowdfunding, or crowdsourcing. You know, you are inviting a group of people to join you on a path of creation. But if you don't like voices in your head or talking about your products before they're done, you can do some damage to yourself too. So you got to know up front what you're willing to do. And sometimes that's why people get Kickstarter managers. Like, you know, some people I know, writers I know, that they don't want to get anywhere near the platform. They let their manager run the campaign for them and interface through them with the backers. So it all depends on what you're comfortable with, and you know your own limitations.
A really good point. And then, so for the more seasoned campaign creators, and what sorts of things do they keep an eye out for? And basically, is it possible for them to tell at a glance whether a campaign will be successful or not, even before it starts?
I think there usually is. If you know what you're doing, you can usually set an expectation and get there. We've had one Kickstarter. We actually stopped, canceled, and restarted again because we set an unrealistic expectation that was going to hurt the campaign. By the way, the campaign was going to fund. So the campaign we started like, well, we predicted, yep, it's going to fund. But it wasn't going to do what we wanted it to do. It wasn't going to engage the fan base properly. It wasn't going to do as well as we could have. So we stopped it, canceled it, restarted it with a better expectation and better support for the fans we were attracting. And by doing that, I think we basically, the fans who were already part of the first campaign idea more enjoyed the second campaign for that product because we engaged them at a better level. So again, you set realistic expectations and you build a campaign. If you treat it professionally and you know your numbers, like anything else, you should always know your numbers in any business. You can look at it and say, okay, here's what I'm asking them for. Here's what's going to cost me in time and money. Here's what it potentially can make me at every level along the way. And you know, at every level, like from 5 backers to 500 backers to 5,000 backers, you should know what that could cost you. I've seen campaigns get blown up. Like, you know, there'll be $100,000, $200,000, $1 million campaigns, and it ruins the company. It ruins the product because they didn't set themselves up for success. Sometimes extreme success can be as damaging as not funding your campaign. So again, just really knowing that system and knowing what it can do to you and being ready for any level of success, you can plan for as a very successful campaign right up front. We knew Battletech would be successful. We built it. We had no doubt we were going to be a strong campaign. We were hoping it would go huge, which it did. And because we were hoping it would go huge, we were mostly ready for it to do so. Where it caught us sleeping was how fast it went huge. So we had all these plans, like, well, here's our $500,000 plan, here's our $1 million plan, here's our $2 million. We had these plans all set up. But when it went to like, you know, $1 million on like, you know, like the first 48 hours, whatever it got to, we knew what we wanted to do. We just couldn't type it in fast enough to get it up online fast enough. The backers were ahead of the campaign the first 36 hours. We were playing catch up because we thought we had enough assets ready, and then we didn't. But fortunately, because we knew where we were going, we didn't get flustered. We didn't get, you know, out of control. We just said, okay, take our time, do it right. We'll eventually catch up to where they are. And our backers were awesome. They let us catch up, and no one gave us a hard time about it. We were good. But that's because we really had a plan. We were not as prepared as we could have been, but we had a plan. And that's really what you need. Other things to watch out for. I can tell you. I can tell you some of the pitfalls I've seen. If you're not a company, a corporation, you're running this as a Schedule C, as a private individual, sole proprietorship. You're probably a cash accrual system for taxes in this country anyway. One of the biggest problems you can make is running a really big Kickstarter at the end of the year, because that money is instantly taxable. And I've watched people get in trouble by not saving aside their taxes. Like, I have the money in December, all the product next August, but guess what happens in April? You still have to pay taxes on the book you sold that's not even out for 6 months. So I've seen that happen to people. That's in both games and publishing. You got to be ready for that if you're on a cash accrual basis. Other things you can do is just let it go to your head. Oh my God, I made $1 million. Cool. I can go to Hawaii. I can buy a new car. I can do everything except the things I was supposed to do with this money, which was create the product I promised, or for like Battletech, the series of products. We have, I believe, 72 physical items we have to create. Not even counting the sub variations of physical items we have to create for our Kickstarter. It's a lot of work. We have a year of production ahead of us to fulfill our Kickstarter. But I've seen experienced companies get stupid and then end up in trouble and not able to finish what they promised. So be ready to finish what you do, your campaign, set goals, engage your fan base, and then deliver and communicate. That's where people, and we made that mistake. We had a campaign, we didn't communicate well, and it hurt us. It was a successful campaign, $400,000 campaign, but because our communication wasn't ready for that, we backslid a little bit. So be ready for that too. We weren't ready for that, the ongoing communication effort it was going to take for a very successful campaign. Now for Battletech, it's 6 times the size of our previous successful campaign, and we're keeping up with it because we knew what to expect and we prepared for it. So
yeah, I can see where that much success could be really challenging. I did one in 2012, just a little, financing my audiobooks. And I remember I totally underestimated how much international shipping would be. So
yeah.
I did fine, but, and there was a lot of work to sign the paperbacks and all that. And that was just for a little, I think I made about 5,000, asked for 2,500, but I can't even imagine how much fulfillment there is on a $2 million campaign.
If you screw up your shipping costs, that's a good way to go, into the hole real fast. And all I can say is you got to suck it up and deal with it. You've made a promise. You've got to engage. I've seen some people come back and say, "Hey guys, we screwed up. We our shipping costs are incorrect. You got to basically help us out." And most of the time, the backers do. The Kickstarter backers are a wonderful community of people. They have some expectations, but generally they know they're part of an ongoing process. So yeah, screwing up your shipping, that's a good way to do it. Not saving aside your tax money, that's a good way to do it. Again, just don't be stupid. I hate to say it, how many problems I've seen campaigns crash and burn that could have been saved with just those simple words. Don't be stupid. Fulfill your obligations and don't be stupid. And what's nice is success breeds success on Kickstarter. If you have a good campaign, that's why I keep saying, don't be afraid to start small. Set a goal of, I just want to make $1,000, or I want to get 50 backers. You should know what's reasonable at your level, and you say set a goal that you think you can reach. The nice thing is, so I only got 50 backers this time, but I'll turn that into 75 to 100 next time, then 200, then 500. If you keep meeting your obligations, the backers will come back to you if you're putting out a good product. And you just build, and it's word of mouth. They build on it like anything else. That's why mostly when you see successful campaigns, you just see them doing better and better and better.
You had mentioned managers, which I hadn't heard of before. Is there a certain level where that it doesn't become feasible unless you're, going to make 6 figures or more on your campaign, or is that somebody, an author could look into getting?
Yes and no. I mean, so I believe I'm safe in saying there's probably no level of Kickstarter where having a manager is unfeasible. It all depends on how much the manager's willing to work, how much work they're willing to do for the size of the Kickstarter. Generally, the bigger the campaign, the more work there is, so the manager's earning his money. The ones I've talked to in the past, they've all worked for like a percentage or a small flat fee and a percentage, and often the percentage is scalable. So, hey, we're planning a $10,000 Kickstarter, and the manager's like, okay, I'll do it for $500 plus 4%. But then if we break 50,000, I'll take it down to 3%. We break 100,000, they'll scale it down. They're not trying to, they're not trying to ride your back to, if you have a big property, to make more than you are on this. They want to be successful as well. But most of the good ones I've seen have offered a sliding scale that's reasonable and that you get what you pay for. And so is it necessary? No. We ran 4 of our 5 campaigns we have run in-house ourselves with our staff. 1 campaign, we hired a manager to do it for us because he was better at it than we were. We wanted to learn from him, and we did. So, yeah, it's all good stuff. You just got to basically, again, know what your expectations are, know your own limitations, and then find a way to work around them.
Excellent. My experience with Kickstarter is fairly limited on the funding level. Like, I have been part of a successful Kickstarter, but I wasn't running it. I was just one of many people in an anthology. But I've funded quite a few. And it's still, like, even by funding one, you get a pretty good idea of what the shape of the funding chart looks like. And in general, it seems like there's an initial surge and then a last-minute surge. And in the middle, there's this sort of valley of death. Is that just
Yes,
the way things go?
That's a good way to describe it. That valley of death seems like you should want to cut it out. The thing is, you still do pretty well in that flat line area. You need to. I'm hoping I get the numbers right here. I believe they say if you don't fund at least 40% of your goal in the first, I think it's 48 hours, you're in trouble. You probably, you can expect a surge at the end, but you probably will. You're much less likely to fund if you're not over at least 40%. If you are 60% of your goal in the first 48 hours, you're in great shape. You're probably gonna overfund. I think I'm pretty sure. I think those numbers are pretty close. Then there's that long valley where you're just working it. That's where you put a lot of work to set up the final 2 days. And it does matter. That I've seen people try to do abbreviated Kickstarters, like they do a 7-day. They want that 3-day ramp and then a 3-day ramp with nothing in between. It's worked. I've seen it work. I've also seen it fail spectacularly. That middle ground can be useful for building expectations, for setting up the end game, also for potentially thinking about other things you can do to upsell on the campaign, because you can always add extras and benefits and stuff like that the fans may be willing to chip in on. There's some good stuff in there. So I'm not sure if micro campaigns, fast campaigns are a good idea or not. But yes, you should be aware that your first 2 or 3 days and your last 2 days are where the critical numbers are. And you should really be ready for those.
Okay, that certainly seemed to have been the case. And it's funny how much effort, you see, again, I've funded so many of them, and how much effort you see going on in that middle section when they're just trickling in. And it's it's good to know that this is expected behavior, and you don't need to worry too much if you see it leveling out. But so in general, you say setting up for the end. So you don't have to be pulling your hair out during that middle part. Just sort of keep people up, make sure people know that it didn't die out or anything like that.
That's where the communication skills come in. That's where everyone takes a breath, and it's almost like the first date is over. Now you're doing the real get to know you things. You're really talking to them, letting them know what to expect. If you keep your people engaged, the nice thing is if you keep them engaged, when you reach those last couple of days, they will do the heavy lifting for you. They realize, hey, we're getting close to the end. You know what? I'm going to up my pledge. I'm going to go from the $20 pledge to the $40 pledge because I like these people. I like this guy. or I like what he's doing, or, oh my God, he added like a leather-bound cover on his book. I want that. You know, so if you keep them engaged, they will want to help you be successful. They'll also call their, get online and email their friends, say, hey, have you looked at this Kickstarter I'm backing? You should maybe come back it with me. But a lot of that is how engaged and enthusiastic your backer list is. Because chances are, as the author or game producer, you pretty much blew your entire budget in the first 24 to 48 hours. If you were going to get one of your fans out there to back you, they probably backed you immediately. Now you're really working on a whole new level of driving that down and trying to really reach out there for new people. And every new person you get is just nothing but gravy at that point. That's a huge bonus. Then you get the last like 40 hours and it just goes crazy again, hopefully.
Now, on the topic of smaller Kickstarters, so you were saying like $1,000. I remember in the business masterclass you were recommending even as low as $200 or $300.
Sure.
Is that okay? Does that still work?
There's no level you can't do. I mean, there's really, it all comes down to what is it you need? Do you need the money? Catalyst didn't need the money. Catalyst is a very successful company. We're doing very well. We didn't do it because we needed the money to fund the product. We were going to make it no matter what. We wanted the grassroots marketing approach. We wanted to reach out there and find out how many fans are out there, and how many of them are out there that we're not reaching through hobby trade. Because we had a feeling, because Battletech is a 35-year-old property, we had a feeling there were thousands of people that would come back to us if we could reach out and find them. And we weren't finding them through the traditional hobby sales, through traditional distribution. So that was a big part of what we want to do. We were trying to find those people. And we found thousands of them, 12,000 backers. Our typical book for Catalyst Game Labs, game book, about 2,500, 3,000 copies. Our typical, that's our typical like support book. Our base game will sell better, but we reached 12,000 people, 4 times the number we would normally reach with a product, so huge win. That's what we were going for. We were trying to find those people. Now, if you're looking at from the point of view of like a new author, excuse me, because that's the focus of this podcast. As a new author, what should I expect? Well, what is it? Are you going to write the book anyway, or the story, or the collection, whatever it is? Yes. Okay, then I don't necessarily need the money. What you're trying to build is fan base. You're trying to build audience. So you can set an expectation. Hey, I'm going to do an anthology collection, and I know that I can print it, POD it or ebook it for this much money, my cost or whatever, and I'm going to offer something special for the 50 people or 200 people I hope to get in this campaign. If you get it here, if you back me here before I've written it or something, I'm going to add a special cover to the POD, or I'm going to throw in 3 extra stories for the ebook only for you backers. So when it goes on Amazon, it'll be 80,000 words, but you're only going to get 95. You set that expectation of what you're going to give them extra. And if you get 50 people to give you $4 a piece, is that a win? I would think it is, because those people, if they like your writing, they're going to buy your stuff on Amazon. They're going to come back and support your next Kickstarter campaign. You just put 50 people on a premier fan list, effectively. You're trying to turn them into super fans, is what you're trying to do. So I have no problem with a $200 goal on Kickstarter, especially if you're a new writer just trying to develop an audience and develop a market for yourself as an indie publisher. Why not? And if you do better than expected, do 500 or 1,000, you're just that much further ahead. But what you don't want to do is say, I want $5,000 for my collection, and in the first 2 days you do $350, and you just it just falls on its face because you set an unrealistic goal. You weren't ready on how to engage people at that level, and so it's like you just have to work it up. Now, if you can't write the book, if you're like, hey, in order to write this book, I got to have $1,000 in my pocket for whatever reason, for the research, for the time off of my regular paying job, for whatever reason, if you have a number you have to reach, sure, set it at that number. But let people know why. You tell them, hey guys, this is why it's this way. This is going to be really great, but here's my need. If they don't match it, if they don't go for it, no harm, no foul. But you really want to be very clear up front and just, again, know what you want to accomplish with this. So I'll use, anyone who wants to should go look up Matt Forbeck and look at his. You could also look at everyone's campaigns they've ever done. You can click on and say, oh, he's like, he's backed 16 products and he's run 7 campaigns. Go study them. See how he did it. See what they did. So go study Catalyst Game Labs. Go study Matt Forbeck. Go study, some of these big ones, and also study unsuccessful campaigns. Learn a lot by what goes wrong on a campaign that doesn't do well. And then just, do that kind of stuff. Again, back to know your platform. This is both a platform and a market. So you've got to basically treat it as both. And yeah, it's fun. What I love about it, it's fun. To me, the campaign is just like almost like a little game in itself. Can I win?
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. When you start treating it like that, and you've got a high score right there to keep track of.
I set a pretty good high score. Yeah.
Yeah. So on the subject, sort of starting with a small Kickstarter, I've seen some folks, a fairly large number of folks actually, usually with larger followings, have success by having a pretty modest goal for their actual funding goal, but then having a full slate of stretch goals going off to infinity, basically. What are your opinions of that method, or just of stretch goals in general?
Every person I respect who has run big campaigns, almost always, I would say 90% plus, give the same advice. Be prepared to give a lot away in your first couple of days. Meaning, set yourself up to where you want to give away free work. You want to give them more than you originally were asking for. Set yourself up for that kind of success. I'm a firm believer in that. Set a modest goal. Absolutely. That's why I said that one time we failed our campaign, we set the wrong goal for the level of product we were trying to produce, which is why we stopped it, revamped it, set a lower goal, because we wanted to get people into these stretch goals. Stretch goals are fun. Stretch goals is where all the excitement is. If you can blow away your goal in the first couple of hours or your first couple of days and get them people clawing for that next cool thing they can add to their campaign, that's where the viral excitement can come from. I have never seen it. I've seen, well, I should say never. I'm sure I have. I can't remember the last huge campaign I saw that didn't do it through the excitement of clawing up through those stretch goals. They didn't blow through their funding, within the first day or two. That's what makes it work, in my opinion. That's one of the easier ways to make it work. I mean, there's probably another 100 ways to do it than I'm doing it. I'm just saying what the generalities I have seen. So yes, set a modest goal, then develop some fun stretch goals to get them to get excited about passing the news along, and also have fun along the way. Sometimes we set social media goals that has nothing to do with us making extra money. We'll say, hey, if 20 of you go on Facebook today and like us just because just for fun, if you're paying attention and 20 of you go do this, we're going to give you something for free. Another short story, or in Baltex we gave away several short stories just for fun little we call them social media missions. Did it translate into money for us? No, not really. Did it translate into awareness of our product? Yes, which means long-term probably results in more sales, but there's no way to quantify what that did for us. We did it just to engage our fans and have some fun, and they had some fun doing it. So yeah, I think setting a modest goal and then planning for stretch goals is very much a good roadmap to success.
Excellent advice. And I just have a couple more Kickstarter questions for you. Hopefully you're not tired of this subject, but you're getting me excited to try a new one. For people who are hoping to maybe get, if not viral, then at least some reach beyond their fan base that they bring in, do you have any tips for, I know they will select campaigns to feature, or just any tips for getting more organic reach?
It all depends on where your strengths currently are. If you've got a winning email list, be ready to use that. If you're a podcaster, leverage the strength you already have. Don't think you're going to go out there and follow my formula exactly or someone else's formula exactly. They had different assets and different weaknesses they were dealing with. So hard to say what helps you set up those keys to success. Obviously, it's a numbers game. You want to reach out and engage the most numbers possible. Are you going to a convention? Why not set it up so you're running it at your convention? You're up there doing panels. You can bring up your Kickstarter. So look and see where you've got some natural synergy with reaching out to your fan base or potential fan base. That'd be one thing I think you could look at. And then it's hard to say. Each campaign is somewhat organic in nature as to what you're trying to accomplish and the assets you already have to build on. I'm not sure that really answers your question, but it's a difficult question to answer. So did I even get close to it? I think I did.
No, that's great. And I'm kind of curious for authors.
I sideswiped it along the way, I think.
That's all right. For authors who are actually established and figure they can probably do a Kickstarter and get funded with no problem, is there any backlash you need to worry about? Because I feel like at least in the author community, like when Seth Godin did his, people were like, well, he doesn't need the money. Why did he, do this $200,000 Kickstarter campaign?
Well, it's not necessarily about it's maybe he did need the money. Maybe he did not need the money. Like Catalyst didn't need the money. In the end, we are all trying to make a living at this and trying to be, being professional and trying to make our best living possible. Sometimes it's about the marketing. Sometimes it's about just trying something new, something creative. In the end, we still need to get a fair price for our product. We are all creators. We're content creators. I've seen the backlash here and there. It used to be a lot worse, I would say 4 or 5 years ago. And I think in publishing, you still see a bit of this, I don't want to call it a ghetto attitude, but that's kind of what it feels like sometimes. Because gaming used to have that too, 5-6 years ago. But after so many successful Kickstarters, after so many millions of dollars funneled into new games that would not exist without this platform, a lot of that's gone away. There's still a little bit of that here and there, but a lot of that in the gaming side is just, it's almost non-existent anymore. So as for publishing, if you hear some of that, the naysayers say, well, why'd you do it this way? And why you don't need this? Like, ignore it. This is the same kind of person who would ask me, why do you write for those, game companies? Why don't you write real fiction? I'm writing real fiction. I'm writing something I love. I'm making a living at it. Why can't I be happy doing this? But they would rather put down the work I was doing because it wasn't what they wanted to do or how they thought I should do it. So kind of the same thing here. If you're happy doing it, if it helps you put out more content or find more fans, I think it's an awesome plan. So I'll go back to your last question just briefly, because one thing I did try with my big campaign I think was a good idea. How does a new writer engage new fans in a small Kickstarter quickly? I had one little tip you could try that worked very well for us on this. No matter what they backed us at, I don't care if they backed us at the $500 pledge level or they just gave me $1. If they backed my campaign, every day we sent out fiction. We had a short story ready to go. If they were a backer, they got a short story. If they were a backer, then quit. I didn't care. They still got a short story. I gave a short story to everyone who backed me, no matter what level they backed me at. And to me, it was an easy little thing to give them. Didn't cost me anything except for some time. I gave them an original story, and the fans loved it. The fact I just gave them stuff just for participating. In fact, I think by the end of the campaign through stretch goals et al., we had given out something like, I think, close to 200,000 words of basically free fiction. They didn't, they got it by hitting certain goal levels, They ended up paying for it. We just gave it to them. Some of it was stuff we had, we had in the already in the can, it was already in the catalog. Some of it was new, but we were doing so well, we wanted to reward our fan base. So if I was right now as a new writer, or even honestly, as a new writer, mid-level writer, or a successful writer, my next campaign, when I run one for fiction, which we will be here pretty soon, I'm giving away a lot of fiction during that campaign for free. Some new stuff, some existing stuff, just to keep them engaged and enjoying my work, or enjoying the work of Catalyst Publishing. Because again, you're back to, this is what gets them excited, and they will respond to it. So yeah.
So what about, I mean, I like that idea, but would you consider like using a full-length novel and breaking it up into sections so that if they start at the beginning, they could get it bit by bit throughout the whole campaign?
That's a tricky one. I like it, but the reason why I'm hesitating is I'm thinking, if I start them on one of my novels, if it was me as a writer, I would not want to, well, sorry guys, we didn't make the 100,000 or the 10,000 or the 5,000. I'm not going to, you don't get the whole thing now. So you want them to have a feeling of they got something and they finished something. So I would be very hesitant to break up a novel that way. I'd rather say, look, guys, we're doing my new novel. At $1,000, we're funded. I'm going to write this novel for you. You get it first, and I'll put it out online. If we get to 10,000, I'm going to give all of you a free novel. So saying it, we give them like half a novel at 5,000, maybe not giving them the whole thing. I don't think that gets people as excited as giving them something they can just, here it is. So if you're going to do that, I'm back to give them a couple of short stories early on. Then have a novella at $5,000, giving you all a free novella. Something I wrote a few years ago. Maybe you haven't read it, but you're just going to get it anyway. At 10,000, I'm going to get a novel you probably haven't read. Maybe it's one I haven't published. You're going to get an unpublished, uncorrected, unedited, something you'll see from the trunk. You'll see something I haven't finished yet. Something special just for you. I mean, there's no way you can't spin this stuff to have fun. It comes down to what you find interesting, how much of yourself you want to put out there. But to me, I would say give them something concrete, something with an ending. So even if your campaign doesn't get everywhere you want it to get to, once you start giving them something, never pull it back. Never have a clawback, never have a way that basically trips them. That will anger people. And you want these people to love you, because you want them to come back to your future Kickstarters. And if they know, man, they offered me a free novel, he delivered, his next campaign, I'm there. That's the kind of attitude you want. So that's why I said I like the idea. At the same time, I'm leery about that idea. That's why I was thinking.
Okay, so when you're doing the stories, they're actually associated with stretch goals then, because I was just thinking like a little bit every day rather than according to if we met a stretch goal or not.
Well, if you were doing a 30-day campaign and you had a 30-chapter novel, and you said, hey guys, over the course of this campaign, as long as we're on track, I'm going to give you a free chapter every day to read. Sure, as long as you're committing to giving it by the end of the campaign, they're going to have the whole thing. So I mean, I'm saying is, that could be very interesting to do. Yes, that I'd be want to do, but only because I'm saying I'm committing ahead of time. You're all going to get this, whether we fund a little, we fund a lot, or maybe not even fund at all. You're all still going to get this novel as my gift to you for backing me and being here for me. And then if I don't, hey, if you don't fund, here's what's fun. You could do that. Let's say you had like $1,000 stretch goal and you use one of your existing novels, but you don't fund. What did you just do? You probably just made 100 people extremely excited about the next time you try a campaign. They're going to come back. And next time, maybe you will fund next time at whatever level you were trying to fund at. But my point is, once you offer them something, make sure they get it, because that's what they expect, and that's what helps breed that success I was talking about before.
Hey, we're going to move away from Kickstarter. Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I can do this all day. I was like, I find it a fascinating platform. I really do. In fact, we haven't done fiction yet. Catalyst has not done fiction, but we actually have a fiction we did fiction as part of our game campaign. We are actually planning some fiction campaigns, both for Catalyst and the spinoff that we did from Catalyst called Pulse Publishing. We're going to do a magazine, fantasy magazine, coming up soon. I can't say the name of it yet, but I will soon. We have some ideas for some fantasy magazines, for some other fiction projects. We will do to start playing around in the publishing side of Kickstarter, because I think there's a lot of potential there. It just hasn't got that critical mass yet that other categories have reached. So we're going to play around with that a little bit, see if we can't help.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Okay, so you work with a ton of artists. What are some of the problems authors encounter when working with artists, and how do you get around those? My husband's a professional illustrator, so
you already know part of the answer to this question. The problem is we think differently. You know, we work with words and we all are trying to create a world, a vision or something, but we do it with such different media that it's hard to sometimes just talk. We don't have a common language necessarily. My art director at Catalyst, we have a fun relationship because I know what I like, I know what I don't like, and when he shows me, hey, Loren, here's the new cover. He wants my opinion. The problem is I don't have the language I need to discuss it with him. So I have to say, well, it's kind of scratchy, and down here it's too muddy beige, and can you stretch out the activity vertically? And I'm like, do you understand what I mean? He's like, I think so. I have no language with him at all. Then he has to take that back and translate it to the actual artist who's doing the work. The biggest problem I've ever had with artists is I love working with them because they're such creative people, and I love visual art. I collect it, big fan of it. But the hardest problem with working with them is just developing a common language you can use to get what you want. Because sometimes it's just so frustrating to look and go, I know this isn't right. I don't know how to tell them how to get there. So that goes with covers for my fiction. I've done fiction covers for my own personal novels and novellas on Amazon. It goes with the gaming stuff. Discussing things with them is hard, but it's so worth it when you get it right. It's so worth it. I mean, nothing's better than having a great artist bring your world to life visually. It's just amazing.
I absolutely agree with that. This cabinet behind me is referred to as the Cabinet of Awesomeness, and it's full of assorted artwork that I've gotten from or because of the books.
Yeah. Well, you can see right behind me, I've got a Doug Chafee original behind me here on the wall. Doug Chafee is an amazing artist who has a mural on the wall at the White House. Oof. But he painted for BattleTech because he loved our world. And I was just fortunate enough to get an original from him. He still worked in oils. I was lucky enough to get an original from him during his life. And just, I'm surrounded by art actually all over my office. It's just the one I keep behind my desk because I like it so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with when artists bring your world to life.
All right, so you've got a military background, and a lot of your writing and the stuff that you've worked on is military flavored, at the very least, military fiction of some variety. When you're writing military genre fiction, what needs to be accurate versus what can be fictionalized? Because it seems like there's some very specific expectations from that audience.
That's an awesome question because also as a military sci-fi and military actually I love military fantasy, military sci-fi. I like military fiction in general. And it's a good question because I have noticed when I've read it, I can sometimes tell who's faking it and who's not faking it. But even if they're faking it, I can still enjoy the story. So what is important about that to get right? Almost what's more important is getting the right attitude or the right feel as opposed to the exact right acronym or, the proper, military procedure. It's like, if you feel like you at least went in the right direction, as a reader, I'm a lot more forgiving. It's when you suddenly go, no, that wouldn't happen. No, not, someone would have stopped the stupidity back on page 1. No. That's where I get frustrated. And hopefully in my own writing, I've managed to do that. I may not always get the exact details right, though I try very hard. But it's more about making sure you understand the underlying, if not the underlying theory, the underlying premise behind why things work the way they do in a military environment. And I think that's true for really almost any kind of a category you want to name. I mean, if I'm not a doctor, could I have a doctor as a main character? Yeah, sure. But hopefully I at least get the attitude and the responsibilities and the, some of that part right. Even if I don't know where he cuts to, do a transplant. I can hopefully look up that and fake that a little bit. So the military stuff, jargon helps, but you can over jargon things a lot. To me, like my military experience, I was an E5 tech on a carrier. I never fired a gun. I never hit the sand. But what I understood about the military was the general bureaucracy of the enlisted ranks and the officer ranks. I understood the relationships, both the positive and the antagonistic relationships you get in a military environment. I saw a lot, so I knew a lot of stuff that would make a world come alive in a very truthful and realistic way. Even if I'm talking about Marines fighting alien beings out in the middle of the desert, or I do a lot of military fantasy stuff in my short fiction. So it may be complete off the wall weirdness, but I think I get the relationships right more than not. And people who have been in the military or have known military people, I think recognize that. I get asked all the time, well, I know you served. Where'd you serve at? Marines? I wrote Crimson Skies. I said, people ask me, what do you fly? Were you in the Air Force? You're in the military. Were you in the Air Force, or what? What do you fly in the weekends? They thought for sure I was a pilot, because I got enough of the jargon, but also details, but also just the attitude of independent flyers. I got those pieces right. They thought I must be part of the club. And these guys were pilots. They, oh yeah, what do you fly? I fly a whatever. I don't know I don't remember the things. I fly a Baron, whatever. Like, what do you fly on the weekends? I'm like, kites with my kids. Like, so. What's important to me, what matters is the characters, the people. So the relationships, the attitudes, sometimes just the stupid bureaucracy that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. Those are the things I think I brought into a military fiction that made it more believable.
All right, and it definitely helps to have, even if you don't have the experience, a beta reader or somebody you can kind of lean on who actually does, I think, to get that authenticity.
Yeah, it never hurts. I mean, yeah, doing a good interview. When I was writing for Crimson Skies, I just went and interviewed a couple pilots. Took me a couple hours. I had them walk me through stuff. But it was spending time with them, I think, more than anything, and getting the rhythm of how they talked about their and the passion for how they talked about what they loved, talk about their craft and flying, and that passion, I think, is what really came through that made people think that I knew more than I actually did. So yeah, beta readers are huge, but also just go interview a few people, talk to them. It's amazing what you learn just sitting in a room with someone for an hour.
Awesome, and we've kept you for about an hour, so I think we're going to have our last couple questions here. Mine is for authors who have some success with their books and are curious about maybe either licensing their work to game creators, or I don't know if it's ever wise to try to manage it yourself. Do you see that happening, or do you have any advice for authors?
I do a lot of licensing. Mostly my licensing for Catalyst has been with TV shows and movies kind of thing, because we want the visuals. But I have seen, there's a few, I can't tell you who, but there's a few fiction writers who I would love to license just the world they put in print. It'll be also generate visuals for it. I can do that. But if the world is deep enough or long-lived enough, absolutely. There's no reason why you can't license it. And there's also a really big push right now among writers to treat their work with more professionalism toward what you can do with it. Yes, we publish books and stories, and we have a lot of fun with that. But why can't we take these worlds we're building, these characters we're building, and find other ways to license them into games or other potential avenues. I think that's coming. That's where, again, it's one of those things where it's not the first thing people think of. You're right. What do you make? Books. But why couldn't you make a figurine? Why couldn't you make a series of sci-fi postcards based on your worlds and sell them as a pack? Why couldn't you take your work into other medias or into other categories completely? And the answer is there's no reason why. We just haven't been big on doing it, but we should be, because we are creating more content in a short story than some people create, in physical products. The depth of our work is amazing, and we should be finding better ways to get it out there.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's exciting, all the possibilities, honestly. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that there are opportunities for authors who are interested in writing for hire. How do they find those jobs, and especially if they are interested in Wizards of the Coast, and all these companies that you're associated with?
So rule number one, I say, don't chase something because you think it's an easy gig, or it'd be fun to try it out. If you're going for work for hire, you really want to go write a work for hire novel or something like that, you should already love the universe you're already looking at. This is not where you go to, how hard can it be to knock off a fancy novel for this company? Not only will you not enjoy the process, the fans will know it. It's just love what you want to do already. I wrote for Star Trek. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I wrote for Conan. I'm a huge Robert Howard fan. So I was already a fan of those works. To write in them was a privilege. Yes, I also made money, and I had to practice my craft doing something new. But love what you're already wanting to do. Second thing is, look for where you've already got something in. If you like BattleTech and you happen to know me, drop me an email. I'll let you know if we've got anything open. And almost always we have anthologies and other things where you can write for. If you're a big sci-fi fan and you know someone who's written for Trek, or an editor or something like that, sure, ask. If you're a D&D fan, drop a letter to Wizards. See what they're doing. There's so many ways to do it. What I used to tell people is, what are you already doing? Where do you already have an opening that's something that's also interesting to you? Because work for hire can be, there's just no limit to what you can do with it. Where that exists. I know people who do work for hire by writing commercials. You ever see all these these commercials with like science fiction and fantasy elements to them? And a lot of times those are written by sci-fi fantasy writers who are just moonlighting and dropping in some scripts for commercials. You never know what that might come out. So for this kind of stuff, I say for fantasy, sci-fi, gaming related novels, usually you just drop someone an email, see what's going on, catch them at a convention. Conventions are awesome. First of all, they're fun, and then people are there having a good time, and usually you can find someone. If you can't find the exact person you need, you can find someone 1 degree removed, and it's like, hey, yeah, I know who you want to talk to. Here's their email. Okay, you've just got a quick in the door, right there. So conventions are great. For gaming, it's Origins and Gen Con are the big ones, but there's all sorts of other ones. Sci-fi, fantasy, anime, they're all over the freaking country. Just go to where the people are and start checking into it. I would say stay away from fanfic if you want to do a work for hire novel. Fanfic is not where you audition generally for work for hire novels. Not that it's not good or bad, doesn't matter. You are a writer, you're a professional. Your content is worth something. Also, their IP is worth something. Fanfic's a really weird gray area where everyone's doing work for no money and spreading around content for no money, and that can be weird when you're trying to then make money off of it later. So I would say, people say fanfic's a great way to practice. Not for this. Not if you want to make money in a work for hire industry, you don't. Conventions are great. Most people I know are very approachable. Emails are fine. Go to their website, grab their email. So if you have a friend of a friend, ask them. Do a little networking.
Yeah, I was actually just at PAX Unplugged this past weekend.
Great show.
All right. So one last question, potentially a quick one. I just saw it in your bio, and I figured I'd end with it. What's the origin of the phrase "the whole 9 yards"?
I love tracking down, the etymology of phrases and symbology and stuff like that. There's a lot of debate on this one. So if you really want to track it down, you have to find published work that reference it in a way that you could tell what it's from. The whole 9 yards is a difficult one because there is yet no definitive answer on this one. There are two competing anecdotal phrases, one of which I believe more than another. But one is the classic one, the original one that I heard originally when I was researching this was in World War II, I believe, the most popular fighter, the ammo belt was basically 9 yards long. So when you shot your whole 9 yards, you were done. You had nothing left to shoot. So, or if you gave someone the whole 9 yards, means you emptied your belt at them. More recently, I've heard a lot of the fans of the, let's say the Highlander persuasion, say that it was obviously a reference to making a traditional Highland kilt, which takes 9 yards of fabric. I mean, I know people I've seen wearing kilts and the big drape things. I don't think there's 9 yards of fabric in that thing, but yeah, maybe. They're really adamant that's where it comes from. I can find no published work to solidify that particular statement. I lean a little more towards the war story because a lot of our popular phraseology and stuff does come out of the military. It comes out of things like the world wars, the big wars we went to. Those are very popular places for that kind of stuff to leak out from. But that's an unsettled argument at this time. But yes, I do love researching phrases and words to figure out where they came from, because I still don't know where shooting fish in a barrel came from. It's driving me crazy. So whoever shot fish in a barrel before, I really want to know.
It's almost like you're an author.
Yeah. No, it's just again, I work with words. So what made that particular set of words enter our language in a way? And again, the origin is almost always lost to time. Figuring out where it came from is hard, but fun. So yeah, just a little hobby of mine.
Awesome. Well, we've gone a little over an hour, I think. My brain is completely full, and now I'm like, I've got to go back to working on that Kickstarter you and I have been chatting about. I'm just very, very excited. And I'm sure our listeners probably have a ton of ideas too. But thank you for joining us. Where can our listeners, followers, etc. find you?
You can find us at catalystgamelabs.com. We have a Twitter feed. Catalyst Game Lab, I think, is our Twitter feed. We were one letter too long. And I am not on social media a lot. I do conventions, Origins, Gen Con, PAX West. I'm sure there's several. I'm forgetting Gamma, the Licensing Expo in Vegas, Toy Fair. I do a lot of shows. I tend to avoid social media except for things like this when I do scripted items. But I can be found and reached out to on the Catalyst website, through our Twitter feed. I'm on Facebook, and I've got my own website, LorenLColeman.com, which has I post occasional essays and my little hobbies there, and then I'll answer emails that come off of that as well.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up now, and thank you everyone for listening. We hope you enjoyed our show today. We'd like to thank Joshua Pearson for producing it, and our listeners, you guys all, for your questions and support and for sharing our podcast. Please visit sixfigureauthors.com. That's the number 6 for episode notes, to leave a comment or to ask a question for a future show, and also request topics that you would like to hear us discuss. Anyway, if you'd like to join us on Facebook, we have a new group there. Search for Six Figure Authors and check out the show notes for the link. Also, please answer the questions. And I think I've said this at least once before, but if we don't accept your request to join, it's because the questions did not get filled out. So if you do listen, send one of us a message and we'll add you in, or if you request again, we'll go ahead and add you. That's it pretty much for today. We'll talk to you all later. Bye.
Hey, everyone.
So long, everybody.